Can a team of only knights fight and win the battles of Tactics Ogre Reborn? We know from my previous one-class run that wizards could do it, and believe it or not, your comments on that video favored knights as the next attempt. So I retrained all my mages, traded their staves for swords, hammers, and axes, and got to work. My concerns when it came to knights was their weakness to most magic and slow movement speed. But as we'll see, their phalanx and guardian force skills more than compensated for this. So I jumped back to Chapter 1 to the Lake Bordeaux battle to test my knights at low level and see how they would do. Just like last time, level sync was turned on, but the knights retained their skills. In this early battle, the knights easily steamrolled through the enemies and gained an easy victory. So it was time to give them more of a challenge. I now jumped to the Quadriga Fortress battle against Darza in Chapter 2. Being at a terrain disadvantage, I thought maybe the knights would have a harder time trying to scale the fortress walls. Coming into the battle, there were also 2 cockatrices, which had spawned. This gave me pause since I had no way to counter petrification, but we pressed on anyway. In a battle that very much became a slow slugfest of attrition, the knights eventually came out on top without too much trouble, despite a few petrifications. It was now time for the knights' next challenge. After jumping to Chapter 4 to try and find a worthy opponent for my knights, I quickly found one. Water. That's right, I had all my knights equipped with armor that did not have the wade ability. We were stuck on the left bank of the river. All except for Denim, since he was the only one equipped with armor that had the wade ability. And just as a quick side note, yes, I left Denim as the Lord class here, but I equipped him with only skills and items available to knights. So, being stuck on the riverbank, I had hoped that all the enemies would come to me, but no. Most of them were also stuck on their side of the river. The octopi, though, could reach me and gave me a run for my money with their acid rain hitting and poisoning multiple knights at a time. But eventually, they were defeated, and I was left staring at the enemy across the river. Thankfully, 2 of my knights were equipped with crossbows, which let me hit a few enemies, but most of the work was left to Denim. Up to this point, I had let the AI run this battle. But after Denim decided to run in and die after being resurrected rather than to heal up first, I decided to take control. A handful of turns later, and it was over. How they crossed the river after that battle, I'll never know. But somehow they did, because now it was on to Heim Castle. I let the AI carry me through the next few battles and had no issues, but at the gates of Heim I took over just to finish the battle quickly, as the enemy leader had stuck his neck out, but the AI of course didn't prioritize him, so I did, and he died. Now it was time to see if the knights could win against Branton himself. Entering the throne room, we advanced as a solid block of steel against the vanguard of Terror Knights arrayed before us. Our phalanx and guardian force skills would come in handy here, as a couple of archers launched their pathetic arrows against our rock-solid defense. Then the magic came at us. This was a threat, as it could hit multiple knights and pierce their armor, but again, phalanx did its part. Slowly we began to advance, taking the fight to the Terror Knights, which at first looked like it might be a winnable fight, but then the terror began to strike as my knights became frightened. They were also cutting off our advance, so some of my knights began a flanking maneuver to try and get at the back of the Terror Knight wave. The advance on the left was initially halted, but eventually we made a breakthrough, and the left flank began to see some success, pushing back one of the Terror Knights. The advance on the right flank, though, was faltering, as Branton unleashed his magic, taking one knight down, while another was trapped by 2 Terror Knights. After some first aid and an advance by Denim, though, the right flank was shored up, and the enemy's center was becoming porous. After a while longer, the troops on the left flank cornered and killed the Terror Knight guarding that flank, freeing them up to collapse on the center. This was just in time, too, as my right flank was beginning to collapse again. But just as this battle of attrition was beginning to take its toll, Branton made a fateful error. He moved up in front of one of my downed knights to get in range of my back line. Little did he know, though, I still had blessing stones. Now that Octavia was up and in his face, she could threaten Branton directly. Meanwhile, the center of my line had nearly broken as 2 of my knights lay dying on the cold stone floor. My left flank moved up in support to try and hold on long enough for Octavia and Denim to cut down Branton. Branton now, with Octavia in his face, ran screaming like a little child. My line had been breaking, but his was broken. Octavia and Denim now had nothing but open ground between them and the prize. The rest of the knights were doing their best to hold their ground, though things were not looking good on the front lines. They knew that Denim and Octavia had broken through. They could see them running up the stairs, chasing Branton into a corner. The knights only needed to hold out a little longer. Finally, a few moments later, Denim charged in, hitting Branton with a critical hit and poisoning him in the process. Then it was Octavia's turn. With a strike of her icy hammer, the tyrant realized his end was near. And with a quarter of our knights down, we needed to end this quickly. Though on the ropes, Branton would go down fighting, as he got one last spell off, getting his revenge on brave Octavia. But that would be his last spell, as Watered, seeing his brave comrade hit the floor, would have none of it. He charged up the side of the room, clambering over a low wall to deliver a final flanking strike to Branton. Branton would die to the icy hammer of Watered. With banged and bloody armor, our knights stood victorious over their foes. The rest of Branton's forces surrendered, and the battle was won. So once again, we see that yes, you can win with just one class, even plain old boring knights. Some questioned that a team of knights would be viable, but I think the thing that really made a difference here was the ridiculous power of Phalanx and Guardian Force when pretty much your whole team has them. There were times where 4 or 5 of my units should have taken 200 plus damage, but instead only took about 20. Don't underestimate the power of these skills. Also, don't underestimate the power of water. If only we had brought a boat. Please remember to like the video and consider subscribing if you enjoyed this content. It takes a lot of time and effort to make these videos, so your support means a lot. Also, we just passed 800 subs on the channel, so thank you all so much for that. If you haven't seen my mage run in Tactics Ogre Reborn, you can take a look at it here. Thank you all so much for watching, have a great day, and keep on gaming.